1280, The Patriot, WWTC, Minneapolis, St. Paul, on the NASDAQ as SALM.
With SRN News, I'm Gordon Griffin. It's the rise before the fall. Snow-weary northeasterners are about to get a break from sub-zero cold brought in by a snowstorm that killed 16 people. But it's only a tease before a big dive begins in the Midwest and moves east with what forecasters describe as landmark cold and life-threatening wind chills. National Weather Service forecaster Bruce Sullivan says that a cold air mass is descending on the Midwest with a vengeance.
Most of those areas in the Midwest on Sunday are going to see temperatures plummeting to well below freezing. Some places like up in Wisconsin should see temperatures falling below zero.
Massachusetts resident Dave Emerson, interviewed while digging out from the snowstorm, says he's had enough already.
I don't like it at all. I want to move south. This is too much. Enough is enough. It's only January and we're already buried. This is no fun.
Forecasters say that the big freeze will be good for 2 or so days of misery before the weather warms up. Weather warnings forecast life-threatening wind chills and historic cold. Also at SRNnews.com, House Republicans are showing no signs of slowing down attacks on Obamacare. SRN's Wally Hines reports.
In a letter sent to House Republicans this week, Majority Leader Eric Cantor signaled his intention to schedule a vote this coming week on security concerns over the health care website. The measure would require that government officials proactively notify individuals whose personal information has been compromised. And in a clear indication that Obamacare will continue to be an election year issue, Cantor called next week's bill part of an ongoing effort to repeal and replace the law. Wally Hines, SRN News, Capitol Hill.
Officials at Boeing and the governor of Washington State are hailing yesterday's vote by production workers at the aviation giant. The workers voted narrowly yesterday to give up some benefits in order to make sure that the assembly of the new 777X plane would take place in the Puget Sound region by Boeing employees represented by the Machinist Union. This is SRN News.
This hour of the Northern Alliance Radio Network is brought to you by Thompson Building and Remodeling. With over 30 years of experience in home repair and remodeling, Thompson Building and Remodeling can ensure you have a quality job done right. From expert roofing, siding, and window installation to full additions and more. To see their work, visit online at thompsonpros.com. Thompson supports the Northern Alliance Radio Network to bring Patriot listeners a local voice in local and national politics. The Northern Alliance is on.
The Northern Alliance Radio Network with Mitch Berg.
Therefore, the burden of maintaining the peace falls on us. And to maintain that peace requires strength.
The Northern Alliance Radio Network on AM 1280, The Patriot.
Welcome back, Twin Cities and World. It's the wind beneath the right wing, the show that says, send us your tired, huddled masses yearning to see red. The Northern Alliance Radio Network, AM 1280. That's right, The Patriot. Brought to you this week, as every week, by Thompson Building and Remodeling. Found on the web at thompsonpros.com, the place that I ask you to check out to trust with the work on the second biggest second investment of your life after your children, your home. I put my money where my mouth is. Actually, I put my insurance company's money where my mouth is. I had them rebuild my garage after the bizarre fire that overtook it 4 years ago. Only people I even thought about calling. Once I saw the thing was on fire, I thought, here's a call to Jeff O'Mara. You do the same. Give Jeff O'Mara a call. Tell him Mitch Berg sent you. He'll know exactly who you're talking about. ThompsonPros.com, Thompson Building and Remodeling. My name is Mitch Berg. My blog, shotinthedark.info, also found on the web at looktruenorth.com. Brad Carlson, I heard tomorrow on the Northern Alliance Closer Edition, 1 to 3. And, of course, King Banyan will be back on our sister station, AM 1570, The Businessman, Saturday mornings at 9 to 11. The entire Northern Alliance Radio Network lineup. Almost 10 years now, the world's first grassroots political talk show. My pleasure to welcome to the broadcast for the first time, and hopefully not the last before this next round of elections, 8th CD candidate for the Republican nomination to run against Rick Nolan, Stuart Mills, joins us in the studio. Stuart, welcome to the broadcast.
Mitch, it is absolutely fabulous to be here.
It's great to have you here. Been looking forward to this for a while here now. You are, of course, the vice president and occasionally CEO of Mills Fleet Farm. I just love that about family-owned businesses. You and the siblings, I presume, take turns as CEO?
Well, my dad and my uncle are
Okay.
very, very involved, and my 2 cousins are involved in the business as well as my sister. So the 6 of us run it, and depending on the day and what hat we're wearing, we all take turns in the CEO seat. So
I just love that.
Yeah.
And you don't ever have the father or the uncle saying, "Oh, you kids, knock off that bickering about company policy, or I'm going to have to slow this company down."
We bicker about everything.
I could just totally see that.
We're told to knock it off quite a bit.
Fair enough. And you burst onto the political scene, really, about this time a year ago when you put out an absolute classic video setting straight some of the people who were dinging on the AR-15 assault rifle, pointing out quite accurately that a typical hunting shotgun puts a lot more lead downrange than an AR-15 does. Just got to go back a year. I don't know what your political background is or how long you've been thinking about jumping into the political ring here. Did you expect that video was going to get the response that it did?
Absolutely not. When I made that video, I was very frustrated. I grew up in a family of gun owners and hunters, and obviously Fleet Farm is in the firearms business.
Yep.
I mean, the competitive shooting is my golf.
Oh, yeah.
I know how guns work.
Yeah.
So I had to set the record straight
Yeah.
and make 3 points. First of all, one gun is not morally superior or inferior to the next.
Right.
I can take you on my range with a variety of different guns and show you in a variety of different circumstances how one gun is not morally superior or inferior to the next. And gun control, at least the divide and conquer strategy of gun control, where some guns are bad and some guns are good. So we're going to ban those, but then keep these based on cosmetic characteristics.
Exactly.
Yep. I can tell you that that's BS, and I can show you demonstrably.
And you showed it on film very demonstrably, something a lot of us shooters knew, but none of us had ever videotaped before. This is excellent. So had you been thinking about throwing your hat in the political ring before this video, or was it the video and the response to it that started you thinking? Or what was it that made you, a seemingly fairly sane person, decide to throw your hat in the ring against Rick Nolan?
It was the video and the response to it. However, it goes back to 2009. I'm the plan administrator of our company's self-insured health plan. And in 2009, I literally walked across the street because my office was across the street where then Representative Jim Obastar's office was. I walked across the street and had a meeting with his district aide because a phone call or an email or a letter would not get responded to. So I sat down.
And Obastar was never in the district.
He was never in his district, but his district aide sat down somewhat reluctantly and listened to my story that we have. Hey, listen, we're headquartered literally across the street from that particular office.
Right.
We have 6,000 employees on our company's health plan. It's a big health plan. I told him about how we were able to say, hey, listen, we wanted to bring down cost and increase quality in a free market way. And we put on a board what were the driving factors of healthcare, both the delivery and the cost of care. And we were able to come up with 3 components: supply, demand, and delivery.
Right.
Well, we weren't able to do anything with supply because we're not going to be running medical colleges or nursing schools.
Right.
We were able to influence delivery successfully, albeit indirectly, but we focused on demand. We were able to bring our costs down.
Right.
Well, I explained to him that the first year of our free market-driven response, where the people that are receiving the care actually have responsibility and are co-equals in the plan, where we are able to flatten out costs one year and we are actually able to bring costs down the next year and rebate money back to our team members. And I talked to him and said, hey, listen, what the Affordable Care Act is supposedly doing is going to increase demand, reduce supply, and do nothing to affect delivery. And that is going to cause costs to go up and quality to go down. And I got a lecture on how the free market has no place in the healthcare economy, and I was politely shown the door. Well, I left him my name and my number and asked for a call from Representative Obastar, and I never got that call. So I could tell Representative Obastar exactly how our plan was going to be negatively affected by Obamacare. And we're not even, our employees aren't even in the exchanges.
Right.
But basically, if Representative Obastar or that district aide is listening, I told you so.
That's right, exactly, and so that was the final straw. Yeah, about that point, you started saying you started down that slippery slope towards where you are today, running for office.
I started getting a lot more outspoken, and then when the anti-Bill of Rights, the anti-Second Amendment movement started out of the Democrats, I got very outspoken.
Right.
And I wanted to have a voice in the process, but really throughout having a voice in the process, I came to the conclusion that I was going to be the voice in the process, because the first time I went to hunting camp when I was 12 years old, I made the mistake of complaining about the food. My dad took me aside. He said, listen, if you complain about the food, you're going to get the job to be the cook. And that's the hunting camp doctrine. If you complain about something, you get the job to fix it. So I'm the first candidate to run underneath the hunting camp doctrine.
That's how I wound up on the air, complaining about politics, and they just sucked me into the studio, and here I am trying to do something about it. So cooking and the Second Amendment and even Obamacare aren't the only issues. So tell us a little bit about the Stuart Mills for Congress campaign. What do you stand for? What's the agenda for
Well, obviously respect for the Constitution,
right,
including but not limited to the Second Amendment.
Yep.
I'm for free market solutions to replacing Obamacare, because,
right.
I mean, we've had the debate and we're down this road.
Yep.
And what we need to do now that we're focused on healthcare is to make sure that we're actually covering more people, that more people have access to coverage, not less. Because what Obamacare was supposed to do was to insure the uninsured.
Right.
We've wound up uninsuring the insured.
Yeah, we started with 47 million uninsured supposedly, and we could be up in 9 figures of uninsured by the time this thing is over, at least in terms of canceled policies.
Yes, and we have to decide as a country, do we want to have a social safety net, or do we want to turn over sectors of the economy to government, or even worse, have them turn private insurers into public utilities, which they are currently doing.
Yep. Another one you mentioned was jobs. And, of course,
Yes.
the 8th District has always been the great sleeping giant of Minnesota. I mean, ever since the iron industry started shutting down when I was a kid, presumably when you were even younger, it's been lagging the entire state's economy. And yet there is so much potential up there. How about talk about jobs?
You're entirely right. And our company is a Main Street business.
Yep.
We're owned by our family.
Yep.
You know, we're not publicly traded. We're not on Wall Street. We understand how Main Street economics work. And the last round of tax, spend, and borrow stimulus, which is nothing but one sugar high after another, negatively affected our part of Minnesota, because we had none of the benefits from it, but yet we're the ones that are going to have to pay the bills. If we are going to reignite our economy, we have to do it from the ground up, not from the top down. Washington, D.C. or St. Paul does not create jobs. Main Street does. We have to create jobs from Main Street on up.
And I remember hearing from people I know in the Northern 7th and, of course, the 8th District, they also say that they're really sick and tired of the economy of northern Minnesota being controlled in a negative sense by environmentalists from the Twin Cities. The mining industry up there has the potential to bring in so much wealth and so much prosperity. And this is the part that I love, and I love as a native North Dakotan. Northern Minnesota is full of these old talus pits and tailing mounds were full of iron that wasn't wasn't quite prosperous enough to process back in the 40s and 50s and 60s. Now it is, and it's literally cheaper for them to build an iron processing smelting plant in Jamestown, North Dakota, my hometown, and truck and railroad the rock to North Dakota than it is to build a plant in North Dakota and put Minnesotans to work, other than a couple of bucket loader operators here. Something is drastically screwed up with this state if it's cheaper to ship rock out of state than to process it here.
We have wonderful opportunities in our part of Minnesota for mining.
Yep.
Not only traditional taconite mining, but also copper nickel.
Yep.
And the technology and the science has evolved to such a point where we can do it economically, or I should say economically soundly,
Yep.
To enhance our economy. And, you know, the environmentalist would have a point if it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But things have progressed. The engineering has progressed, the science has progressed, the oversight has progressed, and all that the mining companies are asking for is to let the regulatory and environmental review process work.
The one we already have.
The one we already have, because
Yes.
they're willing to meet those standards.
Yeah, and the record shows they can meet those standards. The other point you talked about with me before we went on the air was the debt, and of course you mentioned the sugar high of the economic stimulus that didn't stimulate very much in the 8th CD, but it certainly stimulated the growth in digits on the national debt numbers. Here, $17 trillion. Is this even something that can be dealt with anymore, Stuart Mills?
$17 trillion and counting,
Yeah.
and the real fraud is the amount of money we're spending on interest. It's $250 billion a year in interest payments and climbing. As we continue to add to our debt and interest rates return to historic levels or above historic levels, we'll be spending $1 trillion a year. That's $1 trillion a year or thereabouts just on interest payments alone. The only thing that we have to show for that is a receipt that we made our debt service payments. And you know what? We should be reinvesting that money back in our country.
Yeah, having a clean Equifax report doesn't work when you only have one lender in the world. 651-289-4488. We're talking with Stuart Mills, GOP candidate for the nomination to run against Rick Nolan in the 8th Congressional District up north. We'll take your calls at 651-289-4488. We'll also be talking more about his race and some of the issues that are involved. By all means, give us a holler. Northern Alliance Radio Network, AM 1280 The Patriot. Go nowhere. We'll be right back.
Providence Academy presents A Teachable Moment. Here's Mrs. Connie Simons, kindergarten teacher.
Once upon a time. We often think of those words as silly or unimportant, but when the kindergartners learn those classic, timeless stories, they learn about honor, duty, devotion to that which is bigger than you. They hear about love and faith and acts of great courage and character. They learn what they want to be. And because they learn it from those who lived long ago, and often hear it from parents and grandparents right in the classroom, they become part of a grand history. It's beautiful.
There's more to a good education. Your children deserve the whole story. Get the truth at Providence Academy, a Catholic college prep pre-K through 12 school in Plymouth. Call 763-258-2502 or go to providenceacademy.org for more information. And please join us for a tour and to meet the faculty and our families at Open House on January 7th.
There's something terribly wrong with the home security industry, and Simply Safe is on a mission to fix it. Protecting your home is important, but most home security companies make it a nightmare. Their salesmen harass you nonstop with only one goal: to scare you into signing a long-term, no-escape contract. You could get stuck writing huge checks month after month with no way out. It's robbery by contract, and it can cost you thousands. There's a better way to protect your home. Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe has no contracts. They sell direct, so you get the best prices. Plus, Simply Safe boasts a free cellular connection, a 100% wireless system, and 24/7 alarm monitoring costs just $14.99 per month. That's less than 1/3 of what most companies charge. Get home security with no nasty contracts, no commitments, and no hidden fees. Go to mysimplysafe.com today to get a free keychain remote. That's mysimplysafe.com. mysimplysafe.com.
The following is a free offer from Rosetta Stone.
Anyone that I talk to about learning a language, I tell them there's just no other way to do it than Rosetta Stone.
I took Spanish in high school, and it was a miserable failure. 20 years later, I saw the Rosetta Stone program, and it was pretty fun.
You are seeing the language, you are writing the language, you are speaking it.
Real users agree. Rosetta Stone is the fastest way to learn a language, guaranteed. And to prove it, we want you to be a part of our biggest language learning event in history. Because this year, we want to help 3 million people learn a new language. That's why we're going to give you an absolutely free demo of our language immersion technology. To participate in this nationwide event, call 1-800-337-9908.
Rosetta Stone is, in my opinion, the ultimate method, the only method there is to learn a language.
For your free demo, call 1-800-337-9908. That's 1-800-337-9908.
AM 1280 The Patriot.
Working in a coal mine, going down.
Northern Alliance Radio Network. Talking with Stuart Mills, GOP candidate to run against Rick Nolan in the 8th Congressional District, northern Minnesota, the Arrowhead, the Iron Range. pretty much everything east of the line from Bemidji down to Wadena and north of, I don't know, roughly the Cambridge area, Brainerd, that whole chunk of Minnesota, slightly outside our listening area, but plenty of people in the listening area here with a great interest in the area here. So glad you have you on the broadcast here. How's the campaign going, Stuart Mills?
Actually, it's going wonderfully. The people, the grassroots has responded very well to our campaign, and the buzz that we're getting, the interest we're getting, the level of support we're getting has been overwhelming, and we're going to ride this momentum all the way to Election Day.
We're looking forward to it. And by the way, not going to dwell on it, but you had your first brush with scandal a couple weeks ago when the left's noise machine came up with a picture of you doing a beer funnel at a party a number of years ago here. And this is the sort of stuff that the DFL loves to do just to try and scare people out of running for office. And your response was just glorious. It just shut them down with a bullet. It was just awesome. Your response to that little attempt at controversy mongering just was, I practically did a cartwheel down the street, Stuart Mills. Describe that episode, if you would.
Well, it was actually at a friend's birthday party about 6 years ago, and we were toasting her birthday, and my wife took the picture and put it on her Facebook page, and sure enough, the Democrats rifled through my wife's Facebook page, found the picture, and thought that somehow that this was going to be a scam. Well, you know what? I'm a guy that drinks beer. I think they did me a favor, especially in the 8th District.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the DFL wants to tax beer. We have a candidate who likes to drink beer. Make your choice, Northern Minnesota. So the campaign itself, I mean, what are you finding as you talk with voters around and about the district? What are they most concerned about? What are you getting in terms of feedback from your campaign from the Main Street in places like Grand Rapids and Duluth and points north?
Well, they're concerned about their liberty, and they don't always voice it as liberty, but their ability to work and to prosper economically, their ability to keep their guns, their ability to keep their health plans and to keep their doctors. There's a lot of dissatisfaction with how government is meddling in people's lives. Rather than helping us create a system in which we can prosper, now we have a system, a government system, both on the state level and the national level, that is dictating to us how we should be living our lives. And that's not freedom. That's not liberty.
No, it's not. And Rick Nolan, it seems to have been a real throwback to a whole different era. He's literally a throwback. I mean, he was a congressman back in the 70s. They brought him out of mothballs to run against Chip Kravac, and it worked in a very bad year for Republicans here. How's Rick Nolan going over after another term in Washington?
Rick is a very nice guy.
Right.
And everybody who knows him likes him. And I know him and I like him. However, his politics are not likable. And the hometown folksy guy that Rick is in the 8th District, he's different in Washington. When you take a look at a lot of the things that he has advocated for, whether it's the evisceration of our Second Amendment rights and freedoms, or whether it is increasing our stimulus spending and increasing our national debt, you go right down the checklist, and everything that he's advocating for is out of line with the values and the priorities of our part of Minnesota.
651-289-4488 if you have questions for Stuart Mills, who's running for the nomination to run against Rick Nolan this coming fall. Hard to believe we're already up to 2014, Stuart Mills. How can people help out? That's the big right. I mean, you're down here in the Twin Cities apparently doing a little bit of fundraising. I'm assuming you're spending some time. How can people here in the Twin Cities help out with the Stuart Mills for Congress campaign?
Well, there's a lot of people getting involved statewide, but most of our support is coming from the 8th District. And as you mentioned, that a very small part of your listening our audience is in North Branch, is in Wyoming, is in Cambridge, is in Princeton, and that's a big part of our district, and that's an enthusiastic part of our district. And there's going to be very shortly us putting together the fundamentals of our campaign of getting people out there to knock on doors and do lit drops and put signs out and just generally support the campaign at a grassroots level. It's already coming together nicely right now. However, the more support we can get, the more support we can take back our part of Minnesota for the values and the priorities that we all hold.
It strikes me as someone who doesn't live in the 8th District, but has family roots in the area, that if there was ever an argument for how government has failed Main Street America and Main Street Minnesota, the 8th CD would be it. I mean, this is a place where we've had the government of Minnesota involved in the running of the economy of that area far more so than any other part of the state of Minnesota, and yet it is the one that is lagging the worst as a full congressional district. What can a congressman do to help out a region of a state? What impact do you think you can have when you go to Washington on the economy of the 8th CD?
Actually, quite a bit. There's a lot of interest in improving our entire national economy, where when you take a look at our national unemployment rate, and they say, oh, it's making improvements. Well, really it's not, because when Obama took office, the participation in the employment market was closer to 70%.
Yep.
And currently, 5 years after Obama and the Democrats have been running this country,
Yep.
we're closer to 60% participation in our employment rate. And we have to reignite from the ground up, from Main Street on up, our economy. And that has to be the first thing that we as a Congress start tackling, is making sure that we can get our economy growing, because right now it's coiled like a spring.
Yeah.
A business wants to make those investments, but we don't have a system. We don't have the security nationally in order to make those, because we don't know what's coming down the pike next.
Yeah.
And it's completely unpredictable. And either that spring is going to break underneath its own pressure, or we're going to have economic growth. And you know what I want to do in D.C.? Be part of releasing the tension on that spring, so we have sustainable economic growth. And you talked about the 8th District earlier. And, we have a district that's trending conservative, our part of Minnesota. More and more Republicans, more and more people that are identifying themselves as conservatives. But I want to reach out to the Democrats for the very reasons that you just articulated, because you know what? Government is not working for the people of our part of Minnesota.
Right.
That we have the ability to talk about issues such as mining, such as Second Amendment rights, such as replacing Obamacare with something that actually works, rather than dumping the 85% of the people that have insurance out of their insurance plan. And the one thing that I want to get across before we're done here is that this year will be the first year that the cost of our health care is actually put on our W-2. It's not going to be taxed this year, but it will be on our W-2. So when you see that, when you get that in the mail or however you receive your W-2 and you look at that, and you can ask yourself the question, how long before they start taxing that? And when they start taxing that, that will be the beginning of the end of the employer-based system. And if you get your insurance and your care through your employer, you're going to probably be dumped into the Obamacare government exchanges.
It's all counting down. I keep trying to warn my coworkers about that, and it's still an uphill sale. I'm glad you brought up the participation rate. If you look at the actual numbers, I mean, people are doing the handstands about the fact that we're down to 7% and change unemployment. But if you look at the participation rate that number is taken out of, there are about the same number of people working now as there were in the fall of 2009 when we were at the supposed depths of the recession. People are not going back to work. That's absolutely right. So we got about a minute and a half to go here, Stuart Mills. Talk briefly about the first 100 days of Stuart Mills in Washington when you finally get to go and take your office at the Capitol. What can the people of your district look forward to you doing in terms of policy initiatives when you get to Washington?
They can look forward to somebody that's very professional, somebody that's going to be willing to work with all members of the GOP, and where I possibly can reach across the aisle to the Democrats, because you know what? The system that we have right now, our government, the course we're on, is no longer sustainable. And even the Democrats have to understand that we have to make this country sustainable again for the benefit, for the future of our country and the benefit of our children.
Absolutely. One more time, how can people help out? What's the website for the campaign?
StuartMills.com.
StuartMills.com. I'll post that at shotinthedark.info after.
And find us on Facebook.
Absolutely. We could do, and that's well worth a look, too. Stuart Mills, I've got you linked on Facebook, and I will also post the link to Shot in the Dark at shotinthedark.info to the StuartMills.com website. We'll look forward to that and how people can help. We've got to have you back down here again as we head towards the election here. We definitely have to make sure we get you on the stage at the State Fair if you're in town for that.
Definitely. I will be there.
That'll be excellent. We'll have your people. I'll have my people call your people, and we'll do that. So, Stuart Mills, great to have you down here. We'll definitely do this again.
Mitch. I appreciate
and
it.
by the way, talk with your people about getting some more 9mm Luger at some of your stores here. This is getting ridiculous.
Every time we get it, we sell out of it. Trust
I know.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 9 and the 7.62 Russian. Good Lord, this stuff's getting hard to find now too. It's difficult. Anyway, thank you very much for stopping by. When we come back, couple more segments of the week in review here, as well as a look ahead at the politics of this upcoming year here in Minnesota on the Northern Alliance Radio Network, AM 1280, The Patriot. Go nowhere. The fun is, well, technically 3/4 over, and yet just beginning. Right back.
I could never pretend that I don't love you. You could never pretend that I'm your man. That's exactly the way that I want it. It's exactly the way that I am. And you call me in the morning with your troubles, taking it downtown.
Charlie Burrell here, owner of Telecom Warehouse and host of Telecom Soup, which you can hear Sundays at 12 noon right here on AM 1280 The Patriot. Technology is always moving a mile a minute, and with everything changing so rapidly, how do you know what's right for your small business? Tune in every Sunday at 12 noon, where we will share ideas on how to utilize technology to help grow every small business. That's Telecom Soup, Sundays 12 noon on AM 1280 The Patriot, brought to you by Telecom Warehouse in Burnsville.
In January 2013, AM 1280 The Patriot made history by hosting the first ever Pins for Pastors Bowling Classic. And you know what they say about history? It repeats itself. Join AM 1280 The Patriot for the second annual Pins for Pastors, Monday, January 27th at the Brunswick Zone in Brooklyn Park. The event is free for all pastors and ministry leaders around the cities, and the day will include free bowling, a delicious lunch buffet, and even some prizes to be given away. It's the second annual Pins for Pastors, Monday, January 27th. Details and registration at am1280thepatriot.com.
Fall is here, and with cold nights and warmer days, those small cracks are going to turn into big ones, seriously compromising the safety of your windshield. Hi, John Wichko, owner of Advantage Auto Glass. I'd like to thank everyone for a great summer and to remind you that windshields are a major safety component of your automobile. They provide over 80% of the roof's strength. If you have a cracked windshield, the structural integrity has been compromised. Call Advantage Auto Glass today at 952-423-6396, and we'll replace your windshield with only the highest quality parts and adhesives, all backed by a lifetime warranty. Our urethane sealants are also temperature sensitive. This allows us to offer safe, reliable glass replacement at the location of your choice, even when the temperature falls below freezing. All you do is call Advantage and we'll take care of everything. 952-423-6396. That's 952-423-6396. And don't forget, you can also schedule your appointment on our website at replacemywindshield.com.
For chips, nicks, or cracks, call Advantage Auto Glass.
Every day, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps demonstrate their commitment to defend the American way of life. Since 1775, we have served our nation as a force in readiness. From combat operations to humanitarian assistance in every corner of the world. No matter where the mission takes us today or wherever our country needs us tomorrow, we always remember the land we call home. As Marines, we take a stand for each other, for our nation, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
AM 1280 The Patriot. No, that's not Nazareth doing an outtake. It's in fact the original version of that high school prom-time classic from the 70s and 80s. Love Hurts. They did the original version, I should point out, back in the, I think, late 50s, early 60s. Do we have a year on that, Megan Fatale? We're looking up the year that this came out. I should know this because I'm a music trivia machine. But It's late 50s, early 60s at any rate. It was, I'm going to say 1959 or 1960. At any rate, it's by Phil Everly, one of the aforementioned Everly brothers, passed away. I believe was it yesterday or Thursday, sometime in the last couple of days here. I had not actually. Megan Fatale, do you have the details?
It just happened recently.
Either
this morning or late last night.
And to be perfectly honest, I was amazed that they, like a lot of people in the first generation of rock and roll, I'm amazed some of these people are still alive. I mean, Jerry Lee Lewis and Little Richard are still alive. We finally lost an Everly brother, and so that was well played there, Megan Fatale. It was one of my favorite Everly Brothers songs, even if you leave out the whole Nazareth version. And let's be honest, I love the Nazareth version. Who doesn't? Who didn't dance to prom to that version of Love Hurts before 1982 at any rate? And any prom after 1982, who cares? 651-289-4488 is the number to call. It's been a fun show today here so far, talking, of course, with Brian and Mark from Mingo Pack, talking about some of the issues that we conservatives have to be really on our guard about this session. This is going to be an ugly, difficult session for gun owners here in Minnesota and for everyone here in Minnesota, really, whether you're a Second Amendment person or not. Stuart Mills, of course, great having a chance to talk with him for the first time. He's right. I've been harping on this for 2 years on this broadcast right now. The administration and the likes of National Public Radio and Minnesota Public Radio do their yapping and chanting about how the unemployment rate is down under 8%, down in the 7.6% range. And those of us on the right say, wait, don't be celebrating. The unemployment rate is where it's at entirely because people are leaving the workforce. I mean, the job creation numbers are barely enough to keep up with the growth of the population month in, month out. And people are so the unemployment rate will not actually change, especially as a result of the number of jobs being created. Slowly, maybe it'll creep back. But, I mean, we're on a pace to, if we keep creating 200,000 jobs a month as we are right now, we will be on pace to replace the number of jobs we've lost since 2007 by about 2020-something, the early 2020s. I think I've seen 2022 or 2023. The reason that the unemployment rate is under 8% is entirely because of the number of people who have either given up looking for work or people who have run out of their unemployment benefits and are discounted from the rate by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, because that's one of the things that the Bureau of Labor Statistics started doing earlier in this recession, or perhaps in one of the previous recessions, is they stopped counting long-term unemployed people who ran through their entire, 99 weeks of benefits. Once you've run through your 99 weeks, you're not unemployed anymore. You may not have a house, you may not be paying your bills, you may not be feeding your kids, but you're not unemployed. Anyway, labor force participation rate, if you run the numbers, and I do it every month, and I write about it most months on my blog. If you run the labor force participation rate, after you get past all the jabbering about the rates, the number of Americans who are employed is almost exactly where it was in the fall of 2009, when the unemployment rate was up to 10%. It's not that there are that many more people working as a percentage of the population. It's that there are that many more people not bothering to look for work as a percentage of the population. And worse than that, investment in the economy is almost non-existent. There's a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines that people are afraid to invest because, as Stuart Mills said, the crippling uncertainty going on in the economy right now. People who should be investing in businesses and normally would be investing in businesses as fast as they can throw money at the economy at this time in a normal recession are sitting on their money and building up immense stockpiles of cash against a future that no one can predict. And by the way, your liberal friends, as my liberal acquaintances have been doing, are no doubt saying, hey, my 401k is doing so well. And of course it's doing well because the companies that on the New York Stock Exchange are sitting on mounds of cash like Scrooge McDuck in his vault full of coins. They're not spending any money. They're sitting on it. They're glomming onto it. They're putting it in vaults. They're shipping it to the Seychelles or wherever it is, the Caymans, I guess, where people send money to hide out from the feds. They're doing everything but investing it in companies in America and in Minnesota and in the 8th Congressional District and in the 4th and 5th and 2nd Congressional Districts, for that matter. Nobody is investing. Kevin Williamson of the National Review wrote a piece this past week. I've interviewed him on this show a number of times. We're going to get him back here again soon because he is one of not only the single best interviews anywhere in talk radio, he's one of the single best writers about the economy and about society, but especially the economy that we have in America today. And you wrote an excellent piece this past week at the National Review called A Year of Fear. I recommend it to you. It was his New Year's wrap-up, and the whole thing is worth reading. I'm just going to read a bit from the conclusion of the piece about the effect uncertainty has on the economy. This is big, and I quote, "The Obama administration has achieved a special distinction here. Investors are faced with considerable uncertainty vis-a-vis how it might interpret rules as compared with the Bush or Clinton administrations, and also about how it might interpret rules as compared with the Obama administration the day before yesterday. Now you see a mandate, now you don't. And as bad as that is in 2013, the seething hostility of Elizabeth Warren is ascendant on the left, a fact that offers very little encouragement to entrepreneurs and investors considering illiquid long-term positions." By the way, that means things like factories and stores and buildings, things that you actually have to commit to for the long term, as opposed to easily liquidated investments like financial instruments. In other words, if you put your money into, I don't know, a mutual fund or a hedge fund, you can get your money out of it fairly quickly if you change your mind or if the situation for that mutual or hedge fund looks to be a little dodgier in 6 months than it does right now. But if you invest in a store or a factory or a mine, you're committed. You can't get your money right back out just for the asking when you're putting your money into a new business. And that is why, one of the reasons why our economy, the rate of job growth is so absolutely non-existent these days. And by the way, when liberals complain that the companies are too focused on profits, it's this sense of uncertainty that makes them focus on their profits. I'm going to go back to Kevin Williamson here. Quote, "Many on the left complain about the financialization of the U.S. economy while unwittingly helping to encourage that very phenomenon. Given a choice between dividing up his investments between a couple of hedge funds and financial firms or locking it up for 10 years in assembly line in Indiana, a sane fellow is going to consider the question of uncertainty and predictability. And the way things are right now, the assembly line is a risky bet." And by the way, as we have seen over the course of this last several weeks here in Minnesota, this phenomenon is worse than most here in Minnesota, worse than in most parts of the United States, certainly worse than in much of the Midwest, because, well, I mean, we've seen the results. We've seen the fact that Minnesota dropped to dead last in the United States, including the District of Columbia, in terms of entrepreneurial growth, in terms of new businesses created over the course of the year per capita in the United States. Minnesota is dead last. Why? Because we have, in our own little way, the most uncertainty of any of the states out there. We have a two-house majority and a governor of completely bat shovel insane people running our government, extremists running the government here in Minnesota that show themselves perfectly willing to jack up more taxes and keep more money coming out of the economy and calling it a mutual benefit for everyone in the state and giving out every indication that the extreme, far left metrocrats who run our economy are just getting started. And in fact, that given that this is their last guaranteed session of absolute control over state government, it almost looks as if they're going to embark on a fiscal kamikaze mission to suck up as much as the state's economy as they possibly can before risking losing the House in 2014. The fact is, it's only going to get worse here in Minnesota. The uncertainty is going to be worse. The tax climate is going to be more uncertain after this current session starts than it has been before. And the situation we have now is already left us dead last for new business creation. And if possible, even worse than last in some parts of the state of Minnesota. Stuart Mills's 8th Congressional District, classic example. Why would you start a business up there? What's in it for anyone to start a business in the 8th Congressional District in this day and age? You don't know what the tax climate's going to be like. You don't know what health insurance is going to be like. You don't know what it's going to be like trying to offer benefits to employees if indeed you plan on doing it. There's nothing but uncertainty for a business owner, for an entrepreneur, for a provider of any sort in this state. And it's only going to get worse. Anyway, I posted this article from Kevin Williamson the other day at a Shot in the Dark in a piece entitled an entire economy of shots in the dark. Read the link. Click on the link. Go see the article. Kevin Williamson wrote it at National Review Online. By all means, read it. Check it out. When we come back, wrapping things up for the week here on the Northern Alliance Radio Network, 651-289-4488. Might look back at the last year and ahead to this year on the Northern Alliance, AM 1280, The Patriot.
Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You gotta have something if you wanna be with me. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. You gotta have something if you wanna be with me.
WWTC Minneapolis St. Paul.
A service of Salem Communications.
This is Tim McGuire of Blue Ox Heating and Air, and the name Blue Ox came from our employees. Blue Ox is strong, dependable, always there when you need it, does what you want it to do, when you want it to do it. Being on time for a service call is paramount. And then also being able to cultivate a workforce that understands what it takes to listen to customers and what the customer wants. The people that we have today are the best that we've ever had on our team. We train them really well. We'll train on topics of what's new. We'll train on water heaters, sump pumps, furnaces, air conditioning. The people that we have really care. When we have an opening in our company, we get several applications, and then we do background checks and drug tests on all our people, and then we finally select the best candidate. What we know is that if we put the right person in front of the client's going to be happy, they're going to call us back, and they're going to start requesting that technician by name. Blue Ox Heating and Air, total HVAC services. If you have a need today, we'll be there today. Go blueox.com.
This is Dennis Prager, and if you're listening to me, you believe, like I do, that our veterans need recognition. Did you know that only 10% of veteran-owned businesses are owned by service-disabled vets? Azul Staffing is one of them. Azul Staffing was created to put veterans back to work. That is their passion. Your business gets the real benefit when you hire an employee through Azul Staffing. Veterans have a great work ethic, as you know, and they know what it takes to get the job done. Azul will find the person with the right skill set for your task. Work with Azul Staffing, hire a veteran. Rated in the top 25 of veteran-owned companies in the Twin Cities, I recommend them. Azul Staffing is service-disabled veteran-owned. They're putting veterans back to work, and Azul does a great job for their business clients. When you need temporary workers, temp to hire, or direct placement, log on to azulstaffing.com. And if you're a veteran in need of a job, contact Azul today, AZULE staffing.com.
Yes, Wixon Jewelers will give you cash for your gold, but did you know they'll also pay you for your military items, old toys, vintage watches, furniture, even your muscle car? Wixon Jewelers is buying, and they're buying it all. Wixon's experts are ready to make you a cash offer for your old rings, chains, platinum, gold, sterling silver, diamonds, and heirloom jewelry. Do you have an old pocket watch, minute repeater, or chronograph? It doesn't have to be working for Wixon's to buy it. Top dollar paid for old or new Rolex or Patek Philippe watches. Get cash for your military items, medals, pins, uniforms, especially German daggers and Japanese swords. Wixon's will pay you cash for foreign currency, rare coins, artwork, antique furniture, and toys. They'll also make you an offer for your old Corvette and muscle car. Now is the time to turn your gold, silver, and unwanted items into cash at Wixon Jewelers. Not sure what you have? Call Wixon Jewelers or stop in. Wixon Jewelers is buying it all. Wixon Jewelers, just off 35W at 99th and Lindale, Bloomington. Online at WixonJewelers.com.
Yeah. Northern Alliance Radio Network, AM 1280, The Patriot. Hey, don't forget. Oh, wait, no, we're not going to start promoting this till Monday, are we? 2 weeks from today, as I told you last week, just keep your calendars clear. Be ready to go wherever I tell you to go. wherever the station tells you to go coming Monday. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be great. But I can't talk about it yet, so don't ask me. But it's going to be great. And it's going to be 2 weeks from tomorrow. And it's going to be fun. And it's going to be one of the best broadcasts you've heard all year so far, and perhaps all year to come. But I can't give you any details until probably next Saturday on the show here, so just stay tuned. But clear your calendars for January 18th, Saturday afternoon, during the time of this broadcast, and maybe an hour before, just so you can get to where I can't tell you to go. That's all I'm saying. Northern Alliance Radio Network, AM 1280 The Patriot. My name is Mitch Berg. Kicking off kicking off our 10th calendar year, actually our 11th calendar year on the air. But of course, we weren't on the air throughout all of these. Anyway, basically heading up towards our 10th anniversary on the air. In fact, I believe 2 months from this weekend will be our 10th anniversary on the air. There will be some sort of event to commemorate our 10th anniversary on the air. More like one of those, an event where you say, wow, can't believe we put it over on Salem Communications for 10 years to get airtime from this station for 10 years. And yet here we are on the ragged brink of having been on the air for 10 years, which is about 8 years longer than I ever worked for a radio station during my actual radio career. Which, by the way, if you were in radio in the 70s or 80s or early 90s, 1 year was a pretty good time to spend at a radio station. 10 years, practically unheard of. So I'm very thankful for all of that. It was an interesting year, 2013. We didn't talk much about it last year, but I know that it was an interesting year, and I think that my most memorable moment of the year, in terms of politics, in terms of this broadcast, was watching. And I was thinking about this last week as I was doing my annual New Year's Day ceremony on Shot in the Dark, the annual Shooty Awards, which are, for those of you who don't read my blog every day, first of all, why not? What is your excuse? Read my blog every day, shotinthedark.info. One of my traditions that I've been doing every New Year's Day since 2006 was I do an award called the Shooty Awards. It's the awards given to the best and usually worst in alternative media, politics, and blogging in the Twin Cities every year. And it's morphed into more politics than blogging, but covers a little bit of everything. And one of my highlights of the year was when the Democrats, the DFL, the House Metrocrats, came to the session last year in the wake of a school shooting massacre and basically came apart like a Keystone Cops or Three Stooges movie right in front of us all here. My favorite moment, really, and I gave it a Shooty Award entitled the Just Remember Liberals Are Too Smart Award, is when Representative Alice Hausman, a former representative in the Midway of St. Paul who got redistricted out to the east side, leaving me, if anything, worse with Rena Moran and Sandy Pappas as my representative and senator, respectively. Anyway, Alice Hausman, who's represents the east side, or at least part of the east side of St. Paul, along with John Lesch, introduced a bill in the past session. Actually, introduced a big raft of bills, basically everything from a magazine capacity limit to quote assault weapon bans that based entirely on the cosmetics of the firearms involved, and basically a number of bills that would have wholesale violated the Second Amendment rights of an immense swath of Minnesota. I mean, they basically would have rendered half of Minnesota's hunting firearms illegal, as well as everything that qualifies as a quote assault weapon, end quote. Anyway, she was so concerned and so committed to the success of these bills of hers that she didn't show up for the hearing where the bills were to be introduced into consideration and turned the proceedings, as far as she was concerned, over to Heather Martins, a registered lobbyist. Now, can you imagine how the Twin Cities media would react, the stroke that they would have, the cardiac arrest that they would give themselves if, say, a Republican legislator turned over his or her seat in committee to a registered lobbyist for, say, the American Legislative Exchange Commission or the NRA or the Chamber of Commerce? You would think that democracy was fairly collapsing from within. And yet, this passed without a word, not only from the committee chair, Michael Paymar, in whose interest this violation of House rules was, but the entire Twin Cities media. And I bring it up because this ties together a couple of different threads that I spent a good chunk of 2013 harping on in this broadcast here. The Twin Cities media let this crass violation of rules by with scarcely so much as a remark in the newspapers, on Minnesota Public Radio, on Channel 4. This crass violation of rules was let pass without scarcely a comment, just as was let pass the fact that two major news gathering organizations here in the Twin Cities, the MinnPost and Minnesota Public Radio, both provided news coverage of Second Amendment issues that was slanted and biased towards one of the sides that, and by the way, that side would be the side that was supported by the Joyce Foundation, which sponsored both of these news gathering organizations. I should point out that the Minnesota Public Radio story was in 2011, not 2013. But the MinnPost, of course, which has pretensions to be a legitimate news organization, ran an entire year of downright fawning coverage of the Twin Cities and Minnesota gun control movement without disclosing that there was a financial relationship between them and the Joyce Foundation, and between the Joyce Foundation and Heather Martins, the leader of the gun control movement here in the Twin Cities and Minnesota, but mostly the Twin Cities. And this is the same Twin Cities media that, while, as I pointed out during the first half hour of the broadcast today, reacts with Victorian vapors at the thought that there might be differences of opinion and dissent, and sometimes arguments get ugly. These are the same people who made Chris Kluwe a star, at least for 15 minutes here in Minnesota last year. They gave him the same backslapping, hail and well-met, good old boy welcome that the right is always accused of giving to bigots and racists. This is the same Twin Cities media that gave us all of these aberrations, all of these corruptions of democracy, all of these cheapenings of the public discourse, against which, when it's not one of their own, is treated as a symptom that democracy is collapsing by this same Twin Cities media that is doing its best to collapse democracy. And that was the highlight of the year for 2013 for me, at least in terms of this blog and this radio broadcast, was the extent to which it became ever more obvious that the Twin Cities media is like the guy on Dr. Strangelove riding the bomb down from the bomb bay at the end of the movie. Northern Alliance Radio Network, AM 1280 The Patriot. Happy New Year. God bless you. God bless America. Sensible Energy Hour up next, talking wind turbines. Go nowhere.
My name is John, and I'm from Apple Valley. I called Ben Franklin, the punctual plumber, because I am doing a home improvement project, and when it came time to move the supply lines and the vent, I figured that was something I should not do myself, so I called the experts, and they came in and did a fabulous job, and Andy was my tech, and to this day, I still use Andy and refer Andy to other businesses. He was on time, very courteous, and he knew exactly what he was doing. I have used Ben Franklin for other things, and I plan on using them again. I will tell other people, definitely give Ben Franklin Plumbing a call. They are experts in the field. They're on time. They're courteous, and it was just a great group to work with. Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber. If there's any delay, it's you they pay. Benjamin Franklin Plumbing. They did a great job for me, and I suggest you call them today. Benjamin Franklin Plumbing.
Providence Academy presents a teachable moment. Here's Mr. Ben Blackhawk, professor of mathematics.
Around 1200 AD, a man named Fibonacci discovered a number sequence that naturally occurs in the way many plants and animals grow. From this sequence, we derived the so-called golden ratio. You can find this ratio in your own body. The eyebrow is the golden point of your face. The navel is the golden point of your whole height. But because this ratio often shows up in great art and architecture, some say it's a mathematical law of beauty because it appeals to everyone, everywhere, regardless of race or culture, as if some intelligent harmonizer tuned the universe to sing the same chord everywhere.
Faith and reason both gave us Western civilization. Your children deserve the whole story. Get the truth at Providence Academy, a Catholic college prep pre-K through 12 school in Plymouth. Call 763-258-2502 or go to providenceacademy.org for more information. And please join us for a tour and to meet the faculty and our families at Open House on January 7th.
Before you go searching for your dream home, you need to know how much dream you can afford. This is Dennis Prager asking you to call my friend Lou Gronseth at Bell Mortgage. Lou will help you get pre-qualified at historic low interest rates. You'll need to be prepared so you can act fast in today's highly competitive seller's market. With more than 30 years of experience, Lou Gronseth delivers seamless closings. He'll make sure your dream comes true with no last-minute nightmares. There's still time to refinance and to take advantage of the programs for underwater homeowners. And when you work with Lou, he'll give you an autographed copy of my latest book. Many mortgage companies have come and gone over the years. Lou Gronseth and Bell Mortgage remain strong, consistent, local, and ready to help you. Call Lou Gronseth at Bell Mortgage 952-808-0788 or online Lou Gronseth, that's L-U, remember, LUGRONSETH.com. Bell Mortgage is a division of Bell State Bank and Trust, equal housing lender.
From the Renters Warehouse Studios, this is